Hi, and welcome to our fourth Ultimate StepFamily Summit. Today's session is with Susan Haworth, who will be talking about untangling the BioMom stepmom web, 5 steps to release and refocus. My name is Claudette Chenevert, and I'm known as the Stepmom Coach. I am your host, producer, and presenter of the Ultimate StepFamily Summit. So here are some of the main points that Susan and I will be talking about during this interview. We'll be talking about what are the 5 steps to releasing and refocusing our mindset. We'll also talk about who's responsible for a stepchild's bad behavior. We'll talk about who are the usual targets for blame in a step-family situation. And then we'll go to talk about why is owning our emotions important in dealing with frustration, anger, and disappointment. And finally, we'll talk about how should communicating with the ex-partner in a step-family be handled. So a little bit more about Susan. Susan Haworth holds a bachelor's degree in psychology and 2 master's degrees, one in counseling and the other in management, as well as a postmaster's credential in counseling. She has provided counseling, coaching, and training to individuals, families, and executives for over 4 decades. Susan is the owner of Cambius Coaching and Consulting, which specializes in providing individual and couples counseling and coaching for step-parents all over the globe. Susan is a contributing writer to Stepmom magazine, where her monthly advice column, The Stepmom Whisperer, appears. Susan also facilitates support group for stepmothers. In addition to published articles in numerous trade journals, Susan has been featured in the Wall Street Journal and on national and international radio, podcast, and television programs. Susan's book, A Change Would Do You Good, Proven Strategies for Creating the Life You Want, is available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and through independent booksellers nationwide. Susan and her family live in Northern California. So be sure to download your workbook. You'll find the link in an email that was sent to you prior to this event, and you can also click the link above this page. So be sure to take plenty of notes. So please visit Susan's website at cambiuscoaching.com. You'll find the details again in your workbook. So let's get started. Well, hi, Susan. I'm so glad you're here for our 4th Ultimate StepFamily Summit.
It is such a pleasure to be with you again, Claudette. Thank you.
Oh, I am so looking forward to our topic. I think it's one that a lot of us as stepmoms and even biomoms could appreciate and understand. So today we're going to talk about untangling the BioMom stepmom web, 5 steps to release and refocus. So before we jump in, I would love for you, Susan, to share a little bit about yourself, how you got started, just in case someone doesn't know about you. So share a little bit about your story.
Okay, great. Thanks. I will. Well, I've been a counselor and a coach for decades. I started out in mental health counseling. I was working in substance abuse, inpatient care. Then I was working with families and adolescents, and I also worked with executives. And about 6 years ago, I decided to focus on step families. And I've always wanted to do that based on my own experience. You know, as I have said, I made my mess into my message. So I'm like you, Claudette, I am a veteran stepmom. I've been a stepmom for 27 years. Made a lot of mistakes, didn't have a lot of support, and did some things okay, but it's an ongoing journey. And so my focus for the last 6 years has been serving step families, step parents, pretty exclusively, with a few exceptions.
Yeah, and like you, I think as veteran stepmoms, we didn't have the resources we have today, and so yes, we made a lot of mistakes, but I think making those mistakes also allowed us to learn and to understand what works and what doesn't work. So rather than calling them mistakes, they're learning opportunities, correct?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. One of those learning opportunities, or I call them growth opportunities. Yes.
Exactly. So as
Yeah.
you know, the theme is mindset. And so I love our conversation and helping moms and stepmoms understand the tension that is created here. And so one of the questions I want to ask you is, why is the tension and hostility between the stepmom and the biomom so common?
Thank you for asking that. It's the rivalry between first wives and second wives is the grist for many screenplays, films, books. And so we almost accept it as it has to be, and the contentious relationship. But prior to about the mid 20th century, most step families were formed because of death. And so there was no bio mom, there was no bio dad to tangle with. So it's relatively new that we've had this kind of contention between bio moms and stepmoms. But we don't, as I said, we don't have to accept it as inevitable. There are steps we can take to prevent being on a collision course with our partner's ex or
Yeah.
our ex.
Yeah, definitely. And I will say, I just want to add that I think with the birth of social media, that just got worse.
A lot of things just got worse, right? Which we could talk about, but yeah, I think there's just so many ways that we can untangle this, and that's why I'm so excited to talk about the steps to release from this tangled web.
Excellent. So what is the negative consequences of maintaining this feud, like of continuing having this rivalry, as you called it? What does it do to us as stepmoms, to the relationship, maybe with even our stepkids? What's the consequences?
Yeah, there's really no positive. There's no positive to maintaining a rivalry or a contentious relationship. The biggest damage is what it does to us. It's the ball and chain around our ankles that we're dragging around. And it destroys our well-being, really. And then the impact on our relationship, which is our primary relationship with our partner, is fractured. And we're going to talk about refocusing, but that's really what's required, is to refocus your attention. It's such an energy drain, as we all know. When we maintain a relationship and we're ruminating about it, we're plotting, it drains our physical and mental health. So there are lots of reasons to work on this. Lots of really important reasons.
Yeah, and as you said, there's no real positive. I mean,
No.
I can think of health issues, stress, uh, you know, overeating or anxiety or depression. All of these can be linked in some form or another to maintaining this rivalry of, I'm going to get back to this person, or I'm going to show them, or I'm going to make sure I am the one who's being recognized or appreciated. I want everybody to know I am the one now. And that kind of mindset, that kind of thought process is only really affecting you more than anybody else, and then your relationships as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no good that comes from this.
Yeah. So what are some of the remedies, right, to untangle from this web? What can we do?
Okay. So first step is to limit exposure. And what I mean by that is, we don't have to be besties with our husband, partner's ex, or our ex. It is a transactional relationship. Co-parenting, successful co-parenting requires cooperation. It does not require commingling. As a very wise stepmom client of mine once said, she learned that she can be loving and compassionate without having lunch with her husband's ex. Meanwhile, she'd been doing that for many years. So limiting your exposure to what is necessary is really important. And that goes for emails and texts and those kinds of exchanges. One of the things I always ask my clients to do is to make lists of what behaviors affect you directly and what behaviors don't in the step family, and don't mess with the ones that don't affect you directly. So in terms of email exchanges, you want to limit those to just what is necessary, not to, hi, how you doing today? And be included in those communications that directly impact you. And that could be, and usually is, about money and about scheduling. And you can be included in the email, you can be included in the group chat if it's a text, or if that doesn't work, because I can already hear some of my clients screaming in the background saying, oh my God, that would be World War III. There's always blind copies. There's always forwarding. But if you are directly impacted by some of those communications, you should be part of it. You should be part of the negotiation. And I know this was a mistake that I made. I wasn't. And the resentments just kind of grew. And so I'm pretty adamant about that, is that you need to be part of the communications, but the communications need to be limited. And another thing is the boundary issue. And Claudette, we cannot stop talking about boundaries, can we?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right. And one of the things that we talked about last year was, if the BioMom is picking up and dropping off the kids and coming into your house, that really needs to end, unless you invite that person into your house. And so you need to put a boundary there and communicate that not through the kids, but the adults. You need to let the BioMom know that that's not okay. And it doesn't have to be a hostile communication. It can be simply something like, we would like to protect our family privacy, and we're asking that you pick up the children at the front door and drop them off at the front door. So it doesn't have to be hostile. Now, she may not like it, but that's not what we're going for. So look for all the opportunities to limit exposure. And another very important thing is limiting your conversation about her.
Yes.
So I know at one point in my marriage, when we were having a particularly rough time with my husband's exes, we were talking about her all the time. At the dinner table, in our bedroom. I mean, this was so wrong, so wrong. So limit when are you going to allow her into your home? 1 hour a week. I recently had a conversation with a couple I'm working with, and they were talking about maybe we'll just talk about it in the garage. I said, whatever works. But paying attention to that. So that's the first step, is to limit exposure.
Yeah, and I just want to, touch a few things you said about, when you invite her, especially if you're inviting her in your bedroom, you just trash the sanctity of your relationship by having that person inside your bedroom. You're trying to avoid having her being a part of so don't have conversations about her in your bedroom.
No.
And a short story is, and I know, like, I can hear men saying, thank goodness, I'm no longer married to her. I don't want to have continued conversations about her. I'm not with her. I'm with you. And so I remember in our early years, Bernard and I would have 1 hour meetings. Well, it started 30-minute meetings every Saturday morning. And that was my time to share what I needed to share in a container type of time. And he agreed during that 1 hour, he would listen to what I had to say. But that was it. So, limiting exposure, that was something we did. It worked fabulous for us, for him,
Beautiful.
as well as for me.
Beautiful. Yes. What we don't want is a third person in our relationship.
No.
So, yeah.
So step number 2.
Yeah. Step number 2 is do a reality check. So what are you blaming the BioMom for if you're a stepmom? Are you blaming her for the bad behavior of your stepchildren? And isn't your partner responsible for that as well? Are you blaming her for the traffic on the way to pick up the kids? Are you blaming her for your misery? And this is hard, but do a reality check of what you're blaming this woman for. And, it goes both ways. I think stepmoms are easy targets for blame. And we're easy targets for BioMom sometimes, and for stepkids sometimes, for their anger, their frustration, their hurt, the trauma of divorce. Similarly, we stepmoms blame the BioMom. So BioMoms are easy targets for our frustrations, our unhappiness, our disappointment. And so this is part of the reality check, which goes to the next point, which is owning your emotions. Take a hard look at what is going on with you. And this is scary stuff, and it can be confrontive. So are you frustrated with your fantasies didn't measure up to the reality? That life is a lot more difficult than you imagined. And own that, process your own feelings about your frustrations, your anger, your disappointment, whatever it is. And that way they don't come out in ugly ways, because unprocessed emotions will come out, and they'll come out in ugly ways. Just as if we don't process our feelings after a divorce, we carry that around with us to our next relationship and to our graves. So we all owe it to ourselves to look at what those frustrations are and be able to deal with them in a constructive way without blaming someone else or putting them on someone else. The BioMom is not responsible for your misery. Or your unhappiness.
Yeah, and that I think this key is so important, and it's so easy to blame other people whether it's the stepmom, the biomom, or even the stepkids, or maybe even our partner, for us not being happy. If you are not happy with who you are as an individual, it's going to be really hard for you to be happy to be with other people. And so, yeah, own your own emotions. You're the one responsible for that. If you allow other people to control your emotions, which I don't think other people can control you let them in. You really need to ask yourself, like, why am I doing this? What's my payoff in staying in these difficult emotional situation?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is not easy. It's scary too, because sometimes, I mean, I have known stepmoms, I'm sure you have too, who realize that their partners share responsibility for some of this bad behavior.
Mm-hmm.
And then where do you go from there?
Yep.
So that's difficult. Or that, we are thinking, what was I thinking getting into this relationship? And it's a lot easier to blame someone else.
Yeah.
Rather than to own our own disappointment. Yeah. So and it's hard. It's hard to do, but it's important to do. It's necessary to do. Absolutely. For yourself. That's who you're hurting, is just yourself. And so the next step then is, they kind of all go together. The next step is taking responsibility, or acknowledging your responsibility for what's going on. Yeah. And acknowledging, your partner's responsibility too. So I always ask stepmoms too, is, are you poking the bear? I mean, what might you be doing? And as I said, none of this is easy. It's a lot easier, if you will, in the short run, to project our bad feelings on someone else. Yeah. But taking responsibility for what we might be doing to irritate the situation, if you will. For example, I know a stepmom who, a lot of us cross over into the biomom lane inadvertently. Some of us do it intentionally, but mostly it's inadvertently, right? And I know a stepmom, and I think her intentions were good, whose stepchild, the stepdaughter, was with her and having a bad morning. And so she called the school counselor to talk about it, and without calling the biomom. Yeah, this did not end well. No. So, and I also know some more minor things. I know of a stepmom who gave her stepson a haircut, and thought, oh, he wanted a haircut, so I gave him a haircut. No, I know someone who, innocently sent home vitamins with her stepchildren. I mean, you think, oh, there's nothing about that, but we need to think about, to empathize with the biomom. And I am in the position of being a stepmom, being a biomom, and having my daughter has a stepmom. So I kind of can see it from all angles. Now, my daughter's stepmother refers to my daughter as her daughter. And she does this innocently. And I say innocently because she is a lovely person. Her children do not have a stepmother. So she doesn't understand the impact on me. I don't love it. It is not particularly triggering for me, but it's not appropriate. Yeah. That we get into the referring to our stepkids as our kids. We might ask them to refer to us or as mom. It is not appropriate. Here's my position, Claudette, and I'll see if you agree with me. Unless you have done the years, decades of heavy lifting as a parent, you don't get that designation.
And I agree with you. And here's the thing I hear women saying, yeah, but I've had this child since they were like 1 or 2 years old. The mom isn't a part of the picture. That's a different scenario. So, I think it's important to, when we're talking about taking responsibility, also understand that each situation has their own a level of responsibility, whether you've been there like literally their entire life and you're the only person this kid knows. We get it. If you've been there later in life, like in their mid-teens or later teens, and you're wondering why your stepchild isn't calling you mom or looking at you as if like, oh my God, thank you for doing this. That's not going to happen. It doesn't happen with their own parents if you're talking about teenagers. And so, yeah, you talked about poking the bear. I will say I've done this sometimes intentionally and sometimes unintentionally. And, again, we're talking about, we didn't have all these resources. And sometimes, I was just mad at the ex and I thought, well, I'll show her. This is how we do it. It doesn't work in the end. And where it hurts the most, it's the kids. I see my stepdaughters remembering certain events and they were hurt. They were hurt by this. And so, always whatever you do, always ask yourself, in the long run, what is it going to cost me to behave in a certain way 10, 20 years from now? Because our kids or stepkids are going to remember how they felt rather than, like your reasoning behind it.
Yeah, that's such a good point, Claudette. And there are so many reasons to follow these steps. A big one is, step parenting can be a big hit to our self-esteem. And so this is a way to reclaim yourself. And also build an equitable and sustainable relationship with your partner, which is, I think, what we're all going for. So acknowledging your responsibility, as you were talking, I was remembering fomenting envy is a big thing. And if you want to talk about social media, boy, I mean, that is where it's happening, right? But I think, none of us wants to talk about envy. I mean, it's a difficult emotion. It's a difficult feeling. But it's the reality. And are you fomenting? Are you planting the seeds for other people to be envious of you? So here's my confession. I'm not proud of this, but I don't have a lot of contact right now with my husband's ex. Graduations, weddings, that kind of thing. But boy, when I do, I spend way too much time and energy picking out an outfit, making sure my hair looks great, my makeup is in place. So what is that about? It's about fomenting envy, right?
Yeah.
So I know I have to forgive myself for that, which actually leads me to the next or to another point, is about forgiveness. That's what's required. First and foremost, we have to forgive ourselves for not knowing what we didn't know. I always say we enter these things with our eyes wide shut, right? We have no clue. And I didn't have a clue, but I think no one does, really. I mean, So, so we get disappointed. We are disappointed.
Yeah.
And so we have to forgive ourselves for that. Then we have to forgive our partners for their responsibility in whatever bad behaviors are happening. And we do have to extend that to the biomoms, forgiving them. I mean, they, in some ways, in a literal sense, we're all doing the best we can.
Yep.
If we could do better, we would do better. Now, that is not an excuse for bad behavior, and it's not an excuse for not doing the hard work of processing your feelings, but it is the reality, that some people will be unaware and unenlightened for life, but you don't want that person to be you. So these steps will help you get to a better place with that. And forgiveness is necessary. So there is a way to come back from seeing your partner as someone who might be responsible for past bad behavior or even present bad behavior, and that is forgiveness.
Yeah.
That's the way back.
And I want to touch a point about forgiveness. Remember, forgiveness is about for you. It's not about another person. You need to forgive yourself. And it's about forgiveness, I see is like letting go. Right?
Exactly.
So
that's the release part, Claudette. Yeah, it is totally for yourself. Yeah.
And so, so releasing that or holding on to unrealistic expectations, or holding on to your disappointments, or holding on to, well, you did this, so I'm going to whatever, and holding on and trying to up someone else and like, I'm going to show you. These are behaviors or mindsets that are not serving you. And keep you, as you said, chained to your ankles, and you're not able to live. And so whenever you're doing these kinds of things, you're hurting yourself more than anybody else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're hurting yourself, and by extension, you're hurting your relationship too. And all your relationships, really. Because it's occupying so much of your time and energy. So, the refocus then is refocusing on your primary relationships and on your primary relationship with your partner. So it takes, a lot of vigilance and a lot of work, but if you can pivot, if you will, from focusing so much on what the biomom is not doing well, how she's a bad person. Again, you don't need to like her, but you need to get her out of off your psychic plate. And take that energy, take that focus, and put it on your relationship. We all hope that our step kids and our bio kids too are going to launch. They're going to grow up, they're going to be independent, they're going to move out of the house, they're not going to boomerang back. So we all hope for that. And if we have been working on our on building a strong relationship, on open communication, on problem solving, then at the end of the day, we're going to have that strong relationship. But if we haven't, we're left with not much. And so refocusing your energy right now on building that relationship that hopefully is going to last many years and decades is what you need to do. And that is going to serve you, and it's going to serve your partner and ultimately your stepkids too. I mean, nobody benefits when a step family dissolves,
Absolutely.
right? And we all know the stats for divorce in second families. So, it's what we need to be putting primary and really taking whatever measures we need to take to build that foundation so that it's there in the end. And it's never too early. It is never too late. Claudette, one of my earliest clients had been a step parent for 20 years.
Wow.
And it ain't over till it's over, right? So don't pop that cork. You can hit a rough patch at any point. But if you have the foundation, the solid foundation, you can weather that. You can get through it. If you don't, it's going to derail the relationship. So it's never too early. It's never too late to look at what's working, what's not working. Let's talk about it. Let's problem solve. And that's where the focus should be.
Yeah.
And it's scary, it's hard, but it's worth it, right?
I love this because I understand, a lot of times people say, when the kids are 18, when they leave, we're done. I've been in this relationship for 33 years, and I will say there are things that we have gone through as recent as several months ago that we thought, like, why are we going through all this challenge? And it's cumulative. So if you think of interest rates in your bank account, right, it's cumulative, and it grows exponentially. And so think of it as a way of investing in your emotional, relational bank account, that when you do good, when you refocus on what is good in your relationship, on what you want your relationship to look like, when your stepkids and your own kids grow up, they will see, oh, that's how you do it. That's how you come back from an argument. That's how you repair a relationship. That's how you get past difficult moments. This is what it looks like to come together and support one another when you need help. And so always think of, what is it you want your kids to see, or your stepkids and your kids to see you as, and be that role model, be that beacon of hope that kids are looking for today, and saying, yeah, relationships do last, even if it's the second or maybe the third time. Yeah, we may not have gotten it right the first time, and we made mistakes in the second time, but we're learning to make it better.
Yes, indeed. And the other thing that I say too is, even in the event, and you're not hoping for this, that the step family relationship doesn't work out, that you are going to carry that to your next relationship. And so working on yourself, working on your emotions, releasing those non-productive feelings and making sure that you own them, that's going to pay off one way or another. So we owe it to ourselves. And yes, of course, we are role models for our children and our stepchildren. And one last thing I was thinking about, Claudette, is, there's humility is really important. Humility, whether you're a bio parent or a step parent, that we make mistakes. We don't know everything. There could be bumps down the road. There likely will be bumps down the road. Just as in life, things are working until they're not working. It's like our health. We can't take it for granted, right?
Yes.
Right. We have our good health until we don't. But if we have the tools, the growth mindset, if you will, to cope with this, then it's going to serve us well.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you so much. Now, I know, Susan, you have something to offer to our viewers and listeners, and I'd love for you to share that with us.
Thank you, Claudette. First, I want to say this has been such a great opportunity, and I thank you so much for the invitation to join you. Love this summit. So I have a free monthly stepmom support group that's open enrollment, and registration is required, and it's on my website, cambioscoaching.com, or you can just anyone can just email me directly at susan@cambioscoaching.com. That is the first Thursday of every month. It's totally free. It's wonderful. People come in, it's open enrollment, so people come and go. Sometimes I have regulars, always new people. Everyone is welcome from all over.
Excellent.
Yeah, and I also offer, of course, complimentary consultations, the way most of us do. And then I have fee-based groups, and I have fee-based individual counseling coaching, and I do couples work as well.
Excellent. And so everybody, please go and visit Susan's website. I'll put the link in your workbook, and make sure to connect with her. Send her an email if you want more questions. I love what you're doing, Susan, and I love the message you shared with us in helping us understand that we need to release all these negative, non-productive thought process, and you actually helped us to refocus on where to go instead of staying in what's not working. Where do we need to go next? So thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Make sure to visit Susan on her website. The link is in your workbook, and please contact her and participate in her program. You know, it's well worth taking the time to take action and do something that's actually going to help give you what you're looking for in your step-family relationship.
Thank you, Claudette.
Thank you. Take care, and see you next time.